In this video, we will parallel the process of adding keypads to a partition area, but in this case, we will use the EQ40. This is a more advanced control than the standard keypad, and there are some things that we can do with it that we cannot do with the standard keypad. We'll cover those options herein. I am going to start by using a pre-built library object, an EQ40 template. And notice its name is 3, scenes, zones, and partitions, indicating on the first page we've got scenes, second page we've got individual zone control, and then partition wall state manipulation on the third. The partitions portion of this template represent that it is specifically for partition areas. So we'll drag and drop the object into the first partition room and we'll complete the wizard. I'm going to change the name, EQ40A. Now we'll be led through the selection of the partitions. What we're basically doing here is building the third page, an equivalent of what we did with the partition keypad in the previous example. Notice up here it says to take note of partition while you select so you can relabel, assuming you're not using the same labeling that I have here, but I am, so I'll just go ahead through it. If you're not, just make note so that later you'll know which one you selected, and you can rename them. Once we've done that, it starts leading us through the lighting zones. So the first one we're going to select is the one that's going to appear at the top on the second page, so I'm going to do the recessed lights first. After that, it's going to ask me to select all the lighting partition groups in the partition area. So this will apply to all the scenes, the all on, the all off. And then we go through the second zone. Second zone for me is going to be the chandeliers. The third is the cove lights. Now what do you do if you get to the fourth? Remember there are 5 buttons here, so what do you do when you get to the 4th and 5th? Well, I'd just select in the same order the actual local zones within the room, and we'll talk about what I do with those in a minute. Excuse me, the chandelier, not the coves. Okay, once we're done, we create this EQ40. Now, of course, if this doesn't fit yours, and we'll go and look at it in a minute, you're welcome to start from scratch and build it on your own. But once you've gotten to this point with building on your own, from here on we'll be doing the following. So the first thing we want to do before we copy this into the other rooms is we want to go and manipulate to make sure that, you know, any changes that we make here will be copied over into the other rooms as well. So if we happen to know, for example, what the name of these scenes are, we could put that in rather than using the generic. And it's possible that you'll have to build this before you know what those names are. We can go in and we can actually change the scene settings, what those levels are, but we can do that afterward as well. This portion of it is not as important to do right now as is modifying the actual look of the EQ40. So on the second page, I definitely would want to rename each of the zones. So I'm naming my 3 partition groups, and then what I have, if you'll recall, what I did was I selected in room A the recessed lights, so for this one. So I'm going to name him A reset, or let's call it down lights to be consistent, and A chandelier. Okay. And then on the third page, if we have some other nomenclature, go in and type that in the text line. If you're not using 4 partition walls, if you're using less than that, you can right-click, clear the task, and then go and clear the text line, and this will disappear. If you need another one, you can type in its name and then do as we did in the previous example with keypads and bring in the partition wall toggle down and select that partition wall. Unfortunately, we can't support more than 5 in this current situation. If you needed more than that, I'm going to be recommending going to the Equinox interface. Now let me return to the second page and just mention that if this is not desirable to have just local zone-specific controls in each room, then you could do similar to what we did with the third page, which is just clear the task, clear the text line for anyone that you don't want to show here. Okay, once you have this complete, we're going to copy and paste it into each room. And we'll go into each room then, and of course things will modify the name. And then if we did make this specific to each room, then we are going to have to modify this. So we'll clear the task, change the name, and then we'll create a new task, selecting the appropriate zone. And so on. We'd do that for the other. I won't go through the rest of that process. So once you've completed this, you have the 4 EQ40s, one in each room. And again, I haven't completed this, but once you have it completed, you're going to do a connection, a load, configuration, and an update, and then you can go and test each of these. I want to talk now about this hard write button that is programmed in this template that we used. So if you just tap it, it's going to be an all on, all off. So if the lights are off, it will turn them on, similar to what this button would do. If they are all off, if any of them are on, it will turn them off like this button would do. So that's what the hard write button with a simple tap would do. Now in some cases, the owner may not want for an unauthorized individual to be able to manipulate these partition wall status buttons and may ask for a lockout. Well, the option is already built in. So if rather than tapping, we press and hold this hard write button for a second, it starts a process. I'll show you what that is. Let's go take a look at the programming. So on a press, we're just doing the on-off, but on a hold for a second or so, then we would do the following. We're running this. So we will unlock those tasks that are being run by those buttons for 1 minute, and then we will lock them. So the only time that these actually get locked is if this ever gets implemented at the first. So if your user asks for it, go ahead and demonstrate it. You'll see that everything will remain unlocked for a minute, but then it will lock, and from then on they will have to press and hold it in order to unlock that. If you don't want to implement that, then don't test it, because you will start the locking process. If you ever do that, then you will need to create a procedure in here that you can run that will unlock them, and run that to get you back to your clear position. Well, this concludes the instruction on implementing the EQ40. In the next video, we'll address the use of sensors to set the state of partition walls rather than the manual operation that we've been seeing to this point.